Hello and welcome to R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm Kayla McGowan, editor-in-chief, and today we're diving into the lovely ladies in restoration. The month of April, we are highlighting women in restoration who serve in several capacities. And this week we have Becky Edgren. She is the owner and president of Dayton, Ohio PuroClean, and they service the Dayton and Cincinnati market. I could go on about Becky and how much she served this industry, but I'm going to stop talking and welcome Becky, and then we'll get started. So, welcome, Becky.
Hi, Kayla. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. I'm super excited about this one. You've had a long history in our industry, and though you are in the PuroClean network, you actually just represent women so well in this industry. So, we're going to tackle a couple of different things in this episode, but the first one I want to start with is one that is so cool and I know you're super proud of is you launched the first female-only PuroClean franchise at the time when the industry was even more male dominant than it is today. What internal drive or moment just happened to push you to that step into ownership?
Kayla, I didn't even realize that I was the first owner, female owner, way back then. But what really got me into the industry was I have a manufacturing background in a family business that my father started. And so my entire adult career prior to PuroClean was in tooling and machining with my family. And I loved family business and came to a point where I wanted to start something for my daughters and myself. My husband is an engineer by trade, and so he did work with us for several years in the beginning, but he knew that it was really all about developing a family business for my girls. And when I first started looking at businesses, restoration really wasn't even on my radar screen because I didn't even know anything about it. And I remember very specifically, we had a friend who owned a competitor, and he started talking to me and he said, "Well, Becky, why don't you buy my business?" And I said, "I don't even know what you do." And he started talking about restoration. And I said, "People pay you to do that?" And he laughed and he said, "Yes." He said, "There's a huge need out there." And so one thing led to another. And before I knew it, I was introduced to the PuroClean franchise.
That's so interesting to hear your background. Honestly, it's so funny because in this industry, you're either like born into it, right? You have a really long history, or you just happen to fall into the industry, right? You always know somebody that kind of just brings you into this industry, but you have found such success and you've involved your family, which I think is really cool because at the end of the day, our support system is our family. And what better way to have them wrapped up in the business with you alongside you? And I know your daughters are in the business, if I'm not mistaken. And it's
Yes.
just really cool. You've created such a cool legacy, whether it was intentional or not, right? You've set the bar for women in the industry and also welcome them with open arms, which is really cool. I'm going to brag on you for a little bit here, okay? You helped create the Puro Women's Growth Group nearly 16 years ago, maybe even 17 at this point, long before it was like women in the trades being a mainstream topic, which we now see it today that it's a very popular topic, which is really cool to see because it's a huge empowerment opportunity for women in the trades. How have you seen this help, reshape the culture and professionalism and even customer experience over the years since you first launched this group? And I mean, it's grown, right? You guys do a women
Yes.
in restoration lunch. So can you kind of just brag a little bit about that, if you will?
Let me kind of talk to you a little bit about the history and the transition. Because when we first started out, it was really a much smaller circle, maybe 12 to 15 women. And truthfully, it started out more as a need for friendship and a need for women who were supporting their spouses and trying to navigate going from maybe a corporate structure where, the activities involved going out to dinner to nice restaurants or going to big parties to now having your husband in a 24/7 industry where in the middle of the night they have to get up to go out and service and they come home soaking wet or smelling of fire or whatever. And so it was really just trying to help all of the women navigate that. Well, over the years, more women came into it. More the women became more than just a simple support. They started getting into the sales and marketing side of it. A lot of times they might do the accounting piece of it. Sometimes, if they would start hiring people in the sales field that were women, they would bring them to convention. And so we went from a 12 to 15 uh, person group to now we have 40 to 50 women that attend, and it has transitioned to a true business type workshop. And so we get there, we have fun, we share ideas. I am really more of a facilitator than anything because I believe that the power and the energy that we have in that room, Kayla, oh my goodness, you need to come to this one coming, the next convention that we have to just see it and feel it because it truly is a sharing of the good, bad, and the ugly, the highs and the lows. And I think that's another advantage that we have as women is we're not afraid to be vulnerable. And when we're in that group, we're in a safe zone.
Yeah.
And so everybody talks very, very openly and very freely. And every single person in that room has an opportunity to stand up and present and talk and laugh and sometimes even cry. But at the end of the day, we all feel very, very connected.
No, you said that so well, honestly, to see the growth and what it provides. It's a safe space. I also think it's again, very open and vulnerable opportunity for the women in the industry. We've gone from just supporting and admin roles. Now we're in the field, we're leaders, we're all these things. And so everybody in that room has a different aspect, but it's relatable. And I think that's really, really cool. I know that there was some fun stuff that happened at convention last year with the lunch and the tables and the networking. I won't give it all away. But, when I'm there this summer, I'm going to just dive all in. I'd love to be part of that and just hear where everybody is in the industry. I know we've seen a crazy couple of years, and I think, us as women, we're motherly, whether we're mothers or not, and we share our emotions. And so it's a really cool space to just kind of really unload and, kind of get that weight off of our shoulders, if you will, but also see where other people are in their career as well. Hey, we're not maybe only feeling this frustration, maybe a majority of the people in this room are feeling the same frustration, and also celebrate the wins. I think that's really big to take a second to celebrate those wins. And so, for those of you listening, if you have any motivation to start something, this is your reminder to just do that. Just start it, right? Don't wait for anybody else. Just take it by the horns and start it. And, you could be in this seat that Becky's in a couple of years, and we can talk about, all of the successes that you guys have found. So, with that being said, many women in this industry, like I mentioned, do start as admin, but they aspire to become owners or maybe even ops or whatever the case may be. Based on your own journey, which we know you kind of were brought into this industry, it wasn't necessarily sought out. What are the most important skills and relationships and even mindset shifts that helped make you, take that leap? But also, what do you see in future generations that are maybe specific, like skill sets or mindsets that help them launch into that ownership or maybe ops mentality?
Well, first and foremost, you just have to believe you can do it. Sometimes as women, I think we're our own worst enemies because we try to be the superhuman being to everyone and we try to fill every role. And if we would just give ourselves some grace and maybe step back a little bit, we can do anything we set our minds to. So I say you have to believe in yourself. And then I really encourage women as well as men to find a good mentor. I'm fortunate to be able to mentor a lot of different people. People call me all the time just asking questions, not because I have the answers, but because I can listen and relate. And you need that because you're never going to know everything and you don't have to. Just
Yeah.
keep telling yourself you know more than that homeowner does. And you can do this, you
Sounds
know?
simple, huh? It sounds simple,
Yeah.
but it really is that simple.
It's really that simple. And if you have to excuse yourself, make a phone call, you run outside to the truck and you call somebody and you cry help. And we all have done it, including the men in the industry.
Yeah.
And so you just have to believe in yourself. And then another important factor, I believe, is focusing on your strengths. When I decided I was ready to start or and buy a different business, one of the challenges I had in the manufacturing arena was I was not an engineer. And while I could run the business, I didn't know how to run the machines. And
Yeah.
so those machinists, those highly technical CNC operators knew I didn't know how to do that. So I swore to myself I would never buy a business that I could not learn inside and out. And this is a business that you can.
Yeah.
And if you just decide you're going to get all the certifications, you are going to physically do the work for a while. I was on every single job. I pulled wet carpet. I cut drywall on New Year's Eve, rather than going out to the party I was supposed to go to. Um, but you can learn that and you can do it. And each of my daughters are certified. Each of my daughters can do any job that's out there, whether it's a water, fire, mold, or biohazard job. And so my technicians, whether they're male or female, know that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so when I'm trying to train them, when I'm disagreeing with them, when I don't agree with the time it's taking them to do something, they know that I can say, let me show you,
Yeah.
and I will. And so it's one of those industries that I believe you have to be able to get your hands dirty. You can't be afraid to get down and do the work, but you can learn it. There's a lot to it. You learn something every day. I've been in this almost 18 years now, and there's still something that I learn every single week. And that's what makes it so much fun and so interesting. So, and then you just got to take that leap. Like you said, you just got to do it.
No, 100%. I think you said something that just shows the type of leadership that you run your ship by, if you will. And the reason I want to capitalize on this and talk about this for a little bit is because most times people, it's not intentional that they're intimidated, but they just don't really understand necessarily where the owner comes from. Or if you're in they're afraid to ask, hey, can you roll up your sleeves and show me? And it's nobody's fault. That's normal. It's human nature, I guess, if you will. You have shown your team that I've done this. Let's talk about it. Let's come with solutions, not problems, right? And I think it provides a really safe space for people to have that mindset to say, "Hey, I can do it." You're enabling them by telling them, "Hey, it's possible. You can do it. I've done it. You can do it." And I think that just shows the type of leader that you are. And I think that's really nice to hear and talk about because we don't oftentimes do a really good job at humanizing who we are. And I just wanted to take a second and really humanize you and your team and what you bring to the industry because it's really, really important. You didn't have to go into the field. You could have just been a quote unquote owner, right? But
Hmm.
you are an operator, and that's really cool to hear because again, you set a culture and mindset in your business to allow people to want to become an owner later down the road, which is really cool. Selfishly, you don't really want to let them go, but also the mentor in you is like, yes, go spread your wings and fly, right? Isn't that
Yes.
like it's a hard part of business, but isn't that one of the most satisfying parts of business too, in your opinion?
It absolutely is, Kayla. And that I really learned from my father because he's the one who started our family manufacturing company. And I remember as a young adult how many other employees he helped start their own business. Because in his mind, and Mark Davis says this all the time, you have to just raise everybody up for the good of the whole.
Yeah.
And so, even within my business, we talk a lot about lessons learned. You were talking about how I do get dirty. Fortunately, it doesn't happen too much anymore. My daughters do more of that, although occasionally I still do just to prove that I can. But I am a huge advocate of pushing boundaries a little bit and taking that risk.
Yeah.
And so and we have a session called Lessons Learned, where every year at the end of the year we talk about what worked, what didn't, and how do we improve. And from that culture perspective, we also do a lot and talk a lot about our core values. And our core values are very, very simple. They're do the right thing, be respectful of people and property, be passionate about what you do, and give back. And
Mhm.
every week we have a leadership meeting and we discuss those. And what I explain is that if you understand these core values, then I know when you're in the field, you're going to make the right decisions. And even though I may not agree with them, if you come back and say, yeah, but Becky, you said to do the right thing, and I felt that doing the right thing was to do X, well, then I'm going to support that decision.
Yeah.
I might say, well, I'd rather you do it this way next time, but if you're doing it because you thought it was the right thing at the right time, then good for you. You made the decision and you went. And so that's another big piece of who we are and what we do.
Well, I was going to say too, you give your team the freedom and empowerment to make the decisions based on, like you just said, your core values. Obviously, they're there for a reason. And if you're taking things as a learning opportunity rather than, hey, you shouldn't have done that, I think it also still keeps that empowerment piece in line and also builds opportunities to learn from one another, right? Not everybody's thought process is the same. And maybe you've been doing something for a certain way for 10 years, and this new person on your team gives you a new lens to look through. It's all the way, it all happens the way it's supposed to, and you guys are embracing it, which I think is a really big deal. So I want to kind of peel back the layers a little bit. I know three of your daughters, if I'm not mistaken, are in the business as well. What a rare multi-generational success story, if I'm being quite honest. How cool is that? How did you navigate like raising your family and running a business and now having your daughters into the industry as well? What has that meant to you to watch your daughters kind of pave their own way within the industry?
Well, I'll tell you, Kayla, it's my entire sense of being, and so much pride and really thankfulness. I thank God every day for the opportunity and for having my daughters here work with me. And fortunately, when I made that leap and actually bought my business, all of them were in various stages of their own careers. So I wasn't raising small children at that time. But it wasn't until I had decided to buy my PuroClean that I realized that my oldest daughter had always been in accounting and HR, my middle daughter in operations, and my youngest daughter in sales and marketing. And the second that hit me, we were at dinner talking about this, and I just said, thank God he had a bigger plan than I could ever imagine because I could not have designed a dream team like this. And so it has just worked so well because they all have their own lane, if you would. And while they're
Yeah.
still sisters and they still argue, we are thick as thieves. And we'll have be having a strategic discussion or something, or talking about something new we want to try, and gets a little passionate sometimes, as I'm sure you can imagine. But at the end of it, it's like, okay, where are we going for lunch? You
Right.
know, and then it's family again. And
Yes.
so having a family business can either be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I think part of the secret sauce lies in setting boundaries.
Yes.
And you have, especially in this industry, because this is a 24/7 industry. And so somebody is always answering a call.
Yeah.
But if we're at a family function and that call comes in, whoever happens to be on call with the phone that night steps out, takes care of business, and comes back, and we don't discuss it.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, who was that? What has
Yeah.
to happen? Family is family and business is business. And you have to set some type of boundaries so that you you don't lose, who you are, and you don't take your sights off of what's really important.
Sound advice there. Boundaries are everything. I will definitely say, to your point, it can be the greatest, decision you've ever made to bring your family into it, or it could be the worst, right? I think we hear that too with like friends who go into business together. It's no different. You have to be able to not shut it off, but just know, hey, when we're in a family environment, this is family time. When we're at work, it's not personal, I think is the other thing that we need to remember. You mentioned it really well. Things can get very passionate, if you will, but it's never personal, right? It's for the betterment of the business and how to serve your customers at the ultimate level. And I think that's really cool to hear that you just fate brought the whole family together into the business, God willing, if you will. And that's
Yes.
really, really cool to see because you mentioned all of these aspects and they're all key to your business and the way that it runs, which is you were very fortunate. You didn't have to start from ground zero necessarily because your girls knew what they were doing, right? That's so cool. I think in a perfect world, everybody would want it to be generational, but it's really cool to hear the success that you guys have found. And I can't wait to see what the girls do later down the road, right? Because of course you would be proud regardless of whatever happens for them. But just hearing that you guys have all paved your own ways, even though you're in the same business, is really cool to hear, right? You each have your own specialty, but you all bring something to the table. And so, speaking of bringing things to the table, another little brag moment here for you, if you will. You have pioneered several programs, and one of them is, the Continuing Education Initiative. And you've also mentored not just women, but men in this industry. What do you believe is the single most important thing the industry must do next to ensure that more women and even younger generations, if I'm being quite honest, step into leadership and ownership roles? And I ask this because you have been in the industry for nearly 20 years, and I'm sure you've seen there's not as many young people coming into the industry as maybe as much as we would like to. And then women, right? We have grown the women in the industry, but to see them step into leadership roles, I think would be phenomenal, right? We've changed things in the last 20 years, but what does that next step look like? So I know that's kind of hard, the single thing, but what are your thoughts about one of the most important things that people can kind of implement to make that difference in the future of the industry?
Well, a couple things that come to mind is I think maybe we just need to be more honest. And our industry sometimes gets a bad rap, um, just because of all the chaos behind it. But another challenge I see with not just women owners, but owners in general, is we like to talk about how it's a recession-proof industry and how there's always work out there. But then there's but it's hard. There is nothing in this business that is easy. It's very hard. And if you're dishonest about it, women love that. That's a challenge. You don't have to say, oh, you don't want to do this. It's too hard. That's not at all what I'm implying. I'm just saying, hey, what are you interested in? What do you want? Do you want to, if you enjoy helping people, if you enjoy giving back, this is that perfect industry. There's every opportunity, every home we go in, every business go in, we are responding to somebody in need. And so if you can look at the value that we get to add, gosh, there's not another industry out there in my mind that's any better. But it is challenging and it requires continuous learning and continuous improvement. And it gives us an opportunity to elevate ourselves, to elevate our people, to elevate our communities. And if we could just talk about it outside of oh, and by the way, you can make some money on it in it,
Yeah.
um, people have to come into this for the right reasons. And when you have that servant leadership heart and you truly want to help, then anybody who aspires to do that would look at this and say, oh my gosh, this would be perfect. Oh my gosh, I can learn how to do this. If I have a degree, great. If I don't have a degree, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. There are no boundaries. and nobody gets pigeonholed. You could have a one office operation, you could have a multinational operation. The sky is the limit. But you have to start out at the beginning and say,
Yeah.
but it's hard and it takes time, but you can get there.
Gosh, that was so well said. Man, I don't know if could have come up with a better answer, honestly, if I'm being quite frank. You mentioned mindset and honesty. And also you mentioned something that I think most people don't think about in this industry is you can really make your path to success whatever you'd like it to be, which is really huge because to your point, you have to want to roll up your sleeves. You have to understand that there's a lot of hard work, but you also don't have to do all the things, right? You can be independent. You can do just mold. You can do just fire. You can do just contents. And I think it's really, really cool because some people fall in love with the art of a specific service that is offered. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can
Right.
find your own success. And, listening to you and your experience and hearing stuff about your family has been really cool because your daughters probably never thought of this industry, right? And now they love it and they found their home and they found their success. And you said accounting and operations and marketing. I mean, you could be a PM if you wanted to be in this industry. You can be a technician for your entire career if you'd like. You can decide your journey in this space and education, you touched on that, and I think that's really important for somebody listening is you don't have to have a degree, you don't have to even have a GED in most places, you don't have to have a high school diploma, you have to have, to your point, a servant heart. You have to know that you're going to roll up your sleeves every day, if I'm being quite honest, in some way, shape, or form, whether you're in the field or using that strong thing on your shoulders that we call your brain and the critical thinking of what we do every day. I am all out of questions. You covered so much today. I am so thankful that I've had this opportunity to sit down, slow down just a little bit, and kind of talk about you and your journey and how we can help the industry as a whole. Before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to share with the industry?
The only thing that I would really like to throw out there is, hey, if somebody's out there and they're thinking about this, and they don't know which way they want to go, they're always welcome to reach out to me, Kayla. And I say that from all different perspectives. I talk to a lot of prospective business owners. Sometimes they might hear what they want, sometimes they might hear what they don't really want to hear, but maybe what they need to hear. But I am always available to help in any way that I can. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for coming on, Becky. And for all of you listening, you better take Becky up on that opportunity because this industry, we rely on one another for the good, the bad, and the ugly, to Becky's point. And for all of you watching, we will continue highlighting the lovely women in this industry. We will see you on the next episode of Ask the Expert. Take care.